Oil just jumped 10% in 5 days, then crashed 4% in a single morning. All because of 4 words Donald Trump said on Twitter: "Help is on its way." If you think this volatility is random, if you think oil prices move because of supply and demand, if you think geopolitical events create unpredictable market chaos, you're missing the biggest wealth extraction operation in modern history. What happened with Iran isn't about war. It's not about democracy. It's not about human rights. It's about a 4 trillion manipulation machine that turns geopolitical crisis into guaranteed profits for a small group of insiders while systematically destroying middle-class wealth. And Iran is just the latest target. Let me show you exactly how this works, who profits, and why every spike in oil prices makes you poorer while the connected elite get richer. Because what's happening right now in Iran follows a pattern that's been perfected over decades. The same pattern that destroyed Iraq's economy, the same pattern that bankrupted Libya, the same pattern that's been used in Venezuela, Syria, Lebanon, and dozens of other resource-rich nations. It's not about bringing democracy or fighting terrorism or protecting human rights. It's about creating controlled chaos that generates massive profits for energy companies, defense contractors, and financial speculators who know exactly what's coming next. Right now, 2,637 protesters are dead in Iran according to US-based human rights groups. That number keeps growing. Supreme Leader Khamenei has ordered a complete internet blackout. Security forces are shooting protesters in the head and chest. Videos leaked through Starlink connections show bodies wrapped in bags outside Tehran morgues. Families searching among the dead for their children. This is real human suffering, real people dying for freedom. But here's what you need to understand about how the system actually works. The moment Trump threatened military intervention, oil prices spiked from $56 to $66 per barrel in less than a week. That's an 18% increase. Then when Trump said the killing has stopped and backed down from immediate action, prices crashed 4% in a single day, an 18% spike followed by a 4% crash. Do you know what that pattern represents? Systematic wealth extraction. Every time oil prices spike, you pay more at the pump. More for heating, more for food because transportation costs rise, more for everything because energy costs are embedded in every price in the economy. But when prices crash, those savings don't reach you. Gas stations don't immediately lower prices, airlines don't reduce fares, shipping companies don't pass through savings. The spike hits consumers instantly. The crash benefits only the companies and speculators who timed it correctly. Iran produces 3.2 million barrels of oil per day. That's 4% of global production. But Iran sits on 209 billion barrels in proven reserves. That's the 3rd largest in the world, behind only Venezuela and Saudi Arabia. Here's the critical detail. Iran's current production is less than half what it was producing in the 1970s, before the Islamic Revolution. The country has the infrastructure and resources to produce 6.5 million barrels per day. Under the right political conditions, Iran could double global oil supply within 5 years. That terrifies the oil establishment. Saudi Arabia, Russia, US shale producers, everyone who profits from artificially high oil prices. But there's another factor that makes Iran even more valuable: geography. Iran controls the northern side of the Strait of Hormuz. That's the narrow waterway that connects the Persian Gulf to the open ocean. 20 million barrels of oil pass through the Strait of Hormuz every day. That's 20% of all global oil production. 1/5 of the world's crude oil passes through a 21-mile-wide strait that Iran can close whenever it wants. This isn't theoretical. Iran has threatened to close the strait multiple times. They have fast attack boats. They have missiles. They have mines. If Iran closes Hormuz, oil prices don't rise 18%. They rise 180% overnight. That level of control over global energy supplies makes Iran the ultimate prize and the ultimate threat to existing power structures. Let me show you how the manipulation works in practice. December 28th, protests begin in Iran over currency collapse and inflation. The Iranian rial has lost 99% of its value since 2018. Basic necessities cost 10 times what they did 5 years ago. December 30th, protests spread to 78 cities. Government security forces start killing demonstrators. January 2nd, Trump posts on Truth Social: "If Iran violently kills peaceful protesters, the United States will come to their rescue. We are locked and loaded." Oil prices spike 7% in 2 days. January 8th, protests intensify. Iran cuts internet and phone access completely. Videos show massive crowds chanting "Death to the dictator." January 9th, Trump tells Hugh Hewitt, "If they start killing people, we're going to hit them very hard." Oil hits $66, up 18% from $56 just 8 days earlier. January 14th, Trump changes tone. "I've been told the killing has stopped. There are no plans for executions." Oil crashes 4% in hours. Do you see the pattern? Every escalation in rhetoric drives prices higher. Every hint of de-escalation drops prices. This isn't market forces. This is programmed extraction. The people who profit from this know the timeline. They know when tensions will escalate and when they'll ease. They position accordingly. They buy oil futures before Trump makes threats. They sell before he backs down. They make billions while you pay higher gas prices based on manufactured crisis. But here's where it gets more sophisticated. The Iran crisis isn't just about oil prices. It's about reshaping global energy markets. Right now, 97% of Iran's oil exports go to China. China imports over 11 million barrels per day. Iran provides about 3.5% of China's total oil consumption. That doesn't sound like much until you understand the strategic context. China has been building relationships with Iran, Russia, Venezuela, and other oil producers that the U.S. has sanctioned. They're creating an alternative energy system that bypasses U.S. control. The Belt and Road Initiative includes pipelines, refineries, and shipping routes that don't depend on U.S.-dominated systems. China pays for Iranian oil in yuan, not dollars. This threatens the petrodollar system that has been the foundation of U.S. economic dominance since 1974. When the U.S. threatens Iran, they're not just threatening Iran. They're threatening China's energy security. They're threatening Russia's strategic partner. They're threatening an alternative to U.S. hegemony in global energy markets. The oil price spikes serve multiple purposes. They generate short-term profits for U.S. energy companies. They impose costs on China and other countries that depend on Iranian oil. And they send a message about what happens to countries that challenge U.S. control over global energy. Here's the calculation that should terrify you. If the U.S. actually attacks Iran's oil infrastructure, prices won't stop at $70 or $80 per barrel. They'll hit $100, $120, maybe $150. A sustained military conflict that damages Iran's production capacity and threatens the Strait of Hormuz could send oil to $200 per barrel. At those prices, gasoline in the U.S. hits $6, $7, maybe $8 per gallon. Heating costs triple. Food prices spike because transportation costs explode. The entire economy contracts into recession within months, but certain industries and investors make historic profits. Defense contractors get massive government orders. Oil companies see profit margins explode. Speculators who bought oil futures at $56 make 300% returns. The costs fall on everyone else. Workers who can't afford to drive to jobs, families who choose between heating and food, small businesses that go bankrupt because transportation costs destroy their margins. The middle class gets crushed while connected insiders get rich from the crisis they helped create. This isn't speculation. It's exactly what happened in Iraq. In 2003, oil was $25 per barrel. The U.S. invasion sent prices to $104 by 2008. Iraq's oil production is still below pre-war levels 20 years later. Libya, in 2011, was producing 1.6 million barrels per day. NATO intervention dropped production to 200,000 barrels per day. It still hasn't recovered. Venezuela was producing 3.5 million barrels per day in 1998. U.S. sanctions and political pressure have dropped production to 800,000 barrels per day. Every military intervention, every regime change, every sanctions campaign reduces global oil supply and increases prices. This isn't a side effect. It's the primary objective disguised as humanitarian intervention. The human cost is devastating, but the economic cost is designed to be permanent. High energy prices transfer wealth from consumers to producers, from importing countries to exporting countries, from the middle class to energy companies, from workers to speculators. This transfer happens every single day through prices you pay for gas, heating, food, and everything else that depends on energy. Over time, it represents trillions of dollars moved from the many to the few. Iran represents the ultimate prize because of its combination of massive reserves, strategic geography, and current underproduction. If the U.S. could install a friendly government in Iran, American oil companies would get access to the third largest oil reserves in the world. The Strait of Hormuz would be under U.S. control. China would lose a strategic energy partner. Russia would lose an ally. The alternative energy system that threatens U.S. dominance would collapse. But military intervention carries enormous risks. Iran has 85 million people. It's 4 times larger than Iraq. It has advanced missile technology and regional allies. A war with Iran could last decades and cost trillions of dollars. It could trigger a broader Middle East conflict that involves Russia and China. It could close global oil supplies for months or years. The economic disruption could be worse than 2008. So instead of direct invasion, the U.S. uses manufactured crisis, sanctions that destroy Iran's economy and create internal instability, support for protests that justify intervention, threats of military action that spike oil prices and impose costs on Iran's trading partners. This approach generates the profits and strategic benefits of war without the full costs and risks of occupation. It's more sustainable politically and more profitable economically. The Iranian people are trapped in this system. Their economy has been destroyed by sanctions that supposedly target the regime but actually impoverish the population. Inflation has made basic necessities unaffordable. The currency has become worthless. Young people can't find work. Families struggle to survive. Now, these economic pressures create the desperation that fuels protests. But the protests become justification for external intervention that makes the situation worse, not better. This is the cruel genius of the system. Economic warfare creates the conditions that justify military threats. Military threats create oil price volatility that generates profits and imposes strategic costs. The human suffering is real, but it serves the economic and geopolitical objectives of those who design the policies. The Iranian people want freedom, prosperity, and dignity, but their legitimate grievances are being weaponized by forces that don't care about Iranian freedom or prosperity. You are paying for this system every time you fill your gas tank, every time you pay a utility bill, every time you buy food whose price includes transportation costs. You're financing the wealth extraction machine that turns geopolitical crisis into guaranteed profits for a small group of insiders. The oil price spikes that follow each escalation in Iran aren't market responses to supply and demand. They're programmed transfers of wealth from you to them. The pattern will continue because it's profitable for those who design it. There will be escalations and de-escalations, threats and negotiations, spikes and crashes. Each cycle extracts more wealth from ordinary people and concentrates it among energy companies, defense contractors, and financial speculators who profit from manufactured instability. Iran is just the current target. When this crisis ends, there will be another country, another crisis, another opportunity to manipulate oil prices and extract wealth from people who have no idea what's happening to them. The only way to protect yourself is to understand the pattern and refuse to participate in the wealth extraction. That means reducing your dependence on systems that transfer your money to those who profit from crisis. It means recognizing that oil price volatility is not random market behavior, but systematic manipulation designed to impoverish you while enriching those who create the instability. It means understanding that the geopolitical crises that dominate news cycles are often manufactured to serve economic interests that have nothing to do with democracy, human rights, or national security. The Iran crisis will continue because it serves too many powerful interests. Oil companies profit from higher prices. Defense contractors profit from military threats. Financial speculators profit from volatility. Politicians profit from appearing tough on America's enemies. The costs fall on Iranian civilians who die in protests and on ordinary Americans who pay higher prices for energy and everything else. This isn't a tragic side effect of geopolitics. It's the central mechanism of a wealth extraction system that has been perfected over decades of managed crisis. Every time you hear about oil prices rising because of geopolitical tensions, remember Iran. Remember that the volatility isn't random. Remember that the profits aren't accidental. Remember that your higher costs are someone else's guaranteed returns. Remember that the human suffering that justifies intervention often results from the same policies that create the economic conditions for crisis. The system is designed to extract wealth from you and transfer it to those who understand how crisis creates opportunity. The only question is whether you'll continue to pay for a system that impoverishes you to enrich those who manipulate it.